Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, an entrepreneur, Starr. Welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
How's everything?
Excited to be here.
Yeah, how's everything going?
Good, busy.
Busy? If someone has never heard of you, how would you describe yourself to them?
Overall, I'm a creator and a healer, and an entrepreneur, I guess, is a really good umbrella term for it.
That's what I was trying to think, because I was like, on the way here, I was like, sometimes there's an artist like, where they like sing, but like I have a couple people on the podcast that like kind of do a bunch of different things, like you've had a store, you throw events, you know what I mean? So I just was like, what would be the umbrella category? And I just, like basically the whole podcast is just people that kind of like live outside of the box and do different things. But so, recently I put up a story and I was looking for more podcast guests, right? And you were one of the people that responded to me. And it's weird because I'll have friends that I've known for a long time, but I won't know their story. You know what I mean? So you started sharing your story with me and I was like, oh shit, Starr has been through some stuff. You know what I mean? So I want to kind of take it back to the beginning and run it through and then kind of where you're at now. Okay. So what was it like growing up for you?
Growing up was a bit traumatic. I experienced a lot as a child within like my home life, and then also like school just wasn't like the best for me. I just had a lot of challenges that most people my age like weren't facing that I had to kind of overcome. My mental health was really low as like a teenager, so my childhood wasn't necessarily the greatest, but it was a lot of stuff that helped like shape me.
Yeah, would you be willing to share like some of the stuff that you were going through?
I think the biggest thing was like my mental health as a teenager. I experienced like pretty severe bullying in high school. I was going through a lot at home. I didn't really have anybody that I could like connect to and share like what was going on in my life. School wasn't really like a safe place either, so I kind of just isolated a lot. This is like 2011, 2012. So it's like before like Instagram was really big and stuff like that. A lot of this bullying like took place on Facebook.
That's crazy, yeah.
And it was just like broadcasted in such a way that just created such a really bad like anxiety for me. And the only way that I could really cope with it at the time was through like different forms of like self-harm, whether that was like, physical or like substance abuse. And, it wasn't long before, my parents took notice, and I spent a long time between the ages of like 12 to 18 in and out of like different treatments and programs and hospitals, just kind of trying to figure out like, what is this? Like, what's the root of it, But yeah.
Kids are brutal. They, like, you know what I mean? And like, because you brought up like a lot of it would happen on Facebook. And one thing that I just know about from being in school myself is that like once people start running with a narrative in school, and like it's hard to backtrack from that. And like kids just like, I don't know what it is, but they just like, I think there are good kids out there like who obviously want to see the best in like people and like won't push like negativity, but it's like I can think back to people that I went to high school with that, there was a kid like I'm hope he's doing well, but there was this kid that like wore jean jacket. He was like jean jacket kid. He like wore the Canadian tuxedo, but it's just like, and he just forever was like that kid.
Known as that.
And I don't think he was like super bullied, but I just like it's what the point I'm trying to get to is like when you're in high school, if people like start calling you something and running with it, it's hard to like get out of that.
Yeah, and I was basically kind of known as like this depressed girl in high school. Like, I really did struggle, and it was obvious to my peers. And like you said, like once that was on me, it was hard to shake it off. And like for a long time, I kind of fell victim to that and like to my circumstances, and didn't think that I would be anything else but that, if that makes sense. Because it's like people project ideas onto you. It's hard not to fully absorb that, especially at that age. Like I'm a teenager, so what my peers think of me is like the highest, you know what I mean?
No, I get that 100, because I kind of shared it, and some people who listen know my story too a little bit, where like my house burnt down. But I remember the second that my house burnt down in high school, I like remember looking in the mirror. One thing I remember thinking was, why me? And then my second thought is like, yo, this is not how I'm going out. You know what I mean? This is not what I want to be remembered as. Cause like, you know, people, even as life goes on and, you know, as we get older, and I'm sure you feel this way, like you stop caring about what, I don't care what people think. You know what I mean? I'm wearing a fucking American flag suit, you know, half of it doesn't matter anymore. Thank you for tuning in to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast. You can support by subscribing on YouTube or downloading on your preferred podcast platform. And definitely go do that because it helps us grow and I can have more incredible guests on the podcast. The Mike Squires and Friends podcast is proudly sponsored by DistroKid. Looking to broaden your musical horizons as an artist? Discover DistroKid. With its smooth and rewarding music distribution platform, DistroKid offers unlimited uploads while ensuring artists retain 100% of their royalties and earnings. Join the community of over 1 million artists who trust DistroKid to distribute their music across major platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, and so many others. Having personally used DistroKid since 2018, I can attest to their superiority amongst distribution services. Collaborating with fellow artists has become effortless, especially with the ability to easily send splits of songs, streamlining the creative process. With the DistroKid app, accessing these benefits is now more convenient than ever. Safely sign up or log in with two-factor authentication, upload releases on the fly, monitor earnings, and withdraw funds from your DistroKid bank. Stay updated on royalties through push notifications, effortlessly share hyperfollow links, manage account details seamlessly, and track streaming stats from Spotify and Apple. Additionally, explore Mixia for professional-grade mastering, DistroVid for music video distribution, and Instant Share for secure file sharing with collaborators, producers, and more. The DistroKid app is available on both iOS and Android. Download it today from the App Store or Google Play Store to revolutionize your music career. Visit distrokid.com/VIP/Mike Squires to get 30% off your first year membership. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mike Squires and Friends. But like bringing back to your high school experience, what was your friend group like?
So really when things changed for me, I had like some close friends and it's like, your parents are always right, okay? Like moms especially, I shouldn't say always, but like moms know what they're talking about. My mom would be like, these girls, they're not good for you. And I'd be like, stop it. Like, they're my friends, Mom. And, you know, they were essentially like the ones that kind of started like the bullying. I understand this a lot more now, but I just want to love everybody so bad. Like, I love people and connecting with people so much, but that does not mean that I should be connecting with anyone or anybody that comes into, you know, my life. And so I never really had like a consistent friend, you know. I kind of bounced around. I'm a very like, there's a lot of duality within me, so it's like for all my different interests, and you know, I would have like different friends for all that, you know. So I never had like a group. I kind of just like floated around. But at that time when like the internet stuff happened, it was kind of like everybody was like, oh, like that's messy, let me stay away from that. So I was just kind of like lone wolf until I ended up like moving here.
Yeah. You know, and I kind of treat friend groups like almost like the solar system. Like if you're the sun, you know, my close friends are Mars, you know what I mean? Like, then you got the other friends that like you're cool with. Like, you don't let everyone in your direct circle, but you could like, I'm cool with all the planets, you know what I mean? So that's the point I'm trying to get to. It's like you kind of have layers of like where you let people into your life.
That's something I had to learn over time.
Yeah. So where was this going on? Because you said you moved here.
Yeah. So I was born in Stanford. I lived here until I was 5, but I spent 10 years growing up in the Midwest. I lived in North Dakota.
Very random. Okay. This makes a lot of sense, because when you walked in here today, we were talking about our 50 states.
I'm like, why does that make sense, Mike?
But what's wrong with North Dakota, Starr? No, I'm just kidding. No, but because you were like, who'd you get for North Dakota?
Yeah.
And I didn't think you had, when you asked that, I wasn't like, oh, Starr has affiliation with North Dakota.
Because it's so random.
Yeah, let's talk about North Dakota for a little bit, because...
Okay.
Well, yeah, my bad. I don't want to like rehash like trauma or anything.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, but what's going on? Like, and I mean this so respectfully. Like, if people from North Dakota are bullying you, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, not that I'm trying to hate on North Dakotans. I love my North Dakota people, but it's like...
It's very different from here. There's not a lot going on.
Yeah. What's something that you learned from just like being out in North Dakota?
I mean, there was a lot less outer like stimulation, if that makes sense. Like, life is really like slow paced out there. So I think that made me appreciate like having time to like be grounded and like spending time with nature. Like I grew up like outside all the time. Like, my family did a lot of like outdoor sports and like stuff like that. And I feel really connected to nature. That's like my escape. So I think like that is kind of rooted in that. When it comes to what I've learned with North Dakota, I think a lot of it is actually what I learned leaving and coming here.
It makes sense because you have a new perspective. Like sometimes you can't see what a situation is until you take a step back and like kind of look at it for what it is.
Oh my gosh, it's like my life story. Yeah.
So, what did you learn once you were here?
I mean, it was like really a culture shock, like type of thing. Like people out there live a certain type of life. There's a certain way of doing things. Like, you go to high school and then you get married and you have kids, and it's like most people have done that by the time they're 25 or like a certain age. Like they're already settled down and ready for the rest of their life. Like, they get whatever job. I never knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't like anything like that. So it's like there's not a whole lot of room for diversity, and I think that's where like a lot of the bullying came in, because I don't want to say that they're almost like ignorant to different, but it's like someplace like Connecticut is so diverse. I've never seen like places in the United States like this, to where North Dakota, it's like primarily like 2 to 3 different races or national, so it's not
all white people.
It's mostly white people.
Yeah.
They have like a Native American, population, but that's pretty much it, and just people are very much a certain way and have certain expectations, very conservative, very like, I at least grew up like with a high like religious influence on like my morals and just like how I carried myself. So it was a lot of like, once I moved here, the deconditioning of like what I was taught. It was just like, this is not the only way to do things or to feel about things, and I wouldn't have ever had the shift in perspective if I didn't move here.
Yeah. You started like, I obviously don't want to overstep, so whatever you're comfortable with, but, so you had like a substance issue in North Dakota.
Yeah, it was something that I struggled with like as a teenager and then into like my early adulthood. Yeah.
How did you get into that? You know what I mean? Like, what was the thing that like, do you remember the day that like you first got into?
I feel like, so as you know, like I struggled with my mental health. It kind of started with like weed. I smoked weed with friends like in middle school, and I really liked, the way that it just quieted my mind and allowed me to just like breathe a little bit. So I would smoke by myself a lot, and that concerned my parents because they're like, you're not smoking at a party, you're smoking, by yourself. Like that's odd. And they started drug testing me. And, I was on so many different prescriptions due to my mental health. I think that almost made me more accepting, or like, if there's one substance that is similar to this pill that I'm already taking, if the doctor is giving me this, why wouldn't it be safe? So when a friend is offering me something and they're like, it's just like this that you're taking, like it's not that big of a deal, I'm like,
you're
okay,
more open to doing it.
Exactly. And then it was a way for my mom not to tell the difference, because that's already in my system, and again, the boredom. I just think that peer pressure was a thing. Not that I'm like proud of that, I definitely stand on my own a lot more, but I just think that with the way that my life was too, I just was always looking for some kind of escape, however it was, and I just had to find better ways to like have that escape. But the culture for substances, especially in young people in a place like that, is not good. Looking back, there was a lot of us exposed to things that we just shouldn't have been. I don't know exactly where it was like first really introduced, but I know that it wasn't something that I thought too much about just because of the prescription aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. At what point did you realize that it was a problem though?
My like senior year of high school.
You're out there or over here?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here in Connecticut at this point. My senior year of high school, sorry, just thinking for a second.
No, you're good.
My senior year of high school, there was certain substances that were really, I don't want to say trendy, but like there was a lot of people that were doing this particular thing, and I was one of them, you know, and I just kept finding myself in really dangerous situations, you know, and I was in the car with a friend, and I didn't realize that he was way more under the influence, you know, than I was. And I just remember, you know, looking at the window, and the car is so close to this wall, I can see it. And this voice in my head is just like, you are not okay. You need to get out of the car. And I'm like, you need to stop. You know, we pull over. I'm thinking that like, we're going to call somebody to come get us. He leaves me. I'm under the influence. I don't know where I am. I'm, you know, like 17. I'm scared. My dad's blowing up my phone, but I don't want to tell him the truth because I don't want him to be mad at me. And I was just like, this is just, you know, once I finally got out of that situation and got home, and that person that I was with ended up totaling their car.
Oh, wow.
So that voice inside my head like saved me. And, you know, I'm not going to say that, you know, I stopped right then and there. I did still struggle. But unfortunately I have lost a couple people that I really love and were so important to my life because of, you know, overdoses and substance abuse. So it kind of just made me realize that you're playing with your life, like when you do this. And, you know, I'm really grateful that I had the strength to like kind of overcome this on my own, because it's not something that I was open about. It's not something that a lot of people know that I even, you know, struggled with. But like I went to AA meetings or NA meetings, you know, tried to connect with like, you know, people, you know, similar to me. And then again, like how I was telling you when we were talking, the spirituality was really what allowed me to bring the power back to myself and allow me to feel that same escape that I was chasing, like within this faith, instead of, you know, things that could potentially harm me or ruin my life, you know?
Yeah, no. And I really appreciate you sharing all of that too, Starr. You brought up the little voice. My dad's a big proponent of that, to always like listen to that little voice.
Yes.
But it's just insane. Like, so after he totaled the car, like, was he okay after?
He was okay. He was okay. I definitely was terrified, but yeah, he ended up being fine.
But that's not to say that you, but yeah, that's not to say that you would have been.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, so I definitely, you know, even though I was scared to just be left where I was, you know, like I definitely was. That was kind of like the first, like, okay, girl, like you have this inner knowing, like, you know, you need to listen to that.
Yeah.
That little voice, like, to me, it felt like it saved my life and was giving me a second chance, like, you know, watch who you're around, what you're doing, you know, that kind of thing. This could really happen, like, you know.
Yeah, and substance abuse is such a terrifying thing, like at least from my experience and perspective, because obviously for what it is on a surface level too, but a lot of the times where I've had friends or family like that have dealt with substance abuse, I had no idea. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Some of them were, you know, a little bit more obvious than others,
yeah.
But, you know, I had someone very close to me who, you know, over a year they were abusing substances and I didn't even catch wind of it once. And I don't know if that says something about me just not being thing, but like sometimes it's easy to hide though.
Yeah, people being like a functioning addict is very real. And I also think that, I hate to say it, but I think that we normalize a lot of addictive tendencies in today's society. So it's harder to see when someone is really struggling because this lifestyle has become something that's so acceptable. And you know what I mean?
Oh, I 1,000% know you. You know what I mean? Like, I think, because there's a lot of people that'll go out every single weekend and drink, you know what I mean? And that's like kind of the, you know, it's almost like they work all week, go out and drink, and then recycle that. And like, not to say that's like a terrible thing, but it's like, you know, if you're doing this every week and that's kind of what you're living for, it's
exactly,
like there's so much more to life.
I was definitely one of those people at one point in time, so I do get it. It's just nobody's really connected, nobody's really present in that moment, you know, like you said, you're living for that essentially. So
yeah. You talked a lot about your parents. What was your relationship with them?
So my mom was like the closest person to me. She passed away when I was 15. However, she was really the only person while I was going through all that stuff. I kind of had some people in my family. I grew up before we were so open about mental health, you know, like I grew up being told anxiety wasn't real. Like, why are you depressed? Are you just ungrateful? Like,
Something about that generation before us. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, and my mom was kind of the only one that like really would do anything in her power to try to help me. Like, I really disliked her at the time for sending me to treatment, but now, especially now that I'm a parent, like I understand that it was probably terrifying to watch me go through what I was. And, you know, she was doing, you know, what she thought was best. And she just like really spoke life into me when the whole world it felt like was tearing me down, you know, like she used to tell me like, this is not your forever, you know, because I genuinely did feel like there's no way I'm ever not gonna feel exactly like this. Like, you know, at like 13, I'm saying stuff like that. Like I'm telling her like, I don't wanna be a statistic. And she's like, you're not, like, you know, so when I lost her, that was definitely like, the hardest thing I'll probably ever have to do, you know, but it taught me a lot. I think that the older I get, I understand a lot of the things that she told me or the things that I experienced deeper. And she is definitely with me. Like she guides me through everything. But yeah, she's really like the number one person that helped like build me to who I am. I'm not, my dad lives in Norwalk. I didn't really grow up with him too much. Like, you know, we have a relationship now, but yeah, my mom, like everything that I do that I've ever done has been powered by like, I have something to prove. Like I need to show her like all the work that she put in to like try to help me and heal me in the right direction. Like that did not go to waste. Like I, you know, even though she wasn't here to see it all the way through, like I still got to make it happen and continue to make it happen, you know? So.
Yeah. You know, and as I'm like listening to you too, you know, I talk with my mom all the time and I'm so grateful, you know, for her. I can't imagine, you know, being 15, you know, having substance abuse issues and, you know, losing my mom, you know, like what did that time of your life look like?
So my mom passed away my mom had a brain aneurysm. So she was in a medically induced coma for 5 weeks before she actually like transitioned. I was in treatment at the time. I actually saw her the day before this happened. It was my first time getting a home visit where I'm able to leave. And like, we had a really good day. You know, I was 15 years old. You know, teenage girls are not nice to their moms, especially when they're going through stuff.
I have a younger sister, so I get it.
So that day was so pivotal in our relationship. It was like the first time since all this mess happened. Because mind you, like I'm upset with her for sending me to this place because I really believe that there's nothing wrong with me, you know. And that was the first time that like we had a great day, we connected, you know. And I remember like, you know, hugging her, and then the next day I'm being pulled out of class like, oh, your mom's in emergency surgery. And I immediately know, you know, that something is wrong because she would have told me that, you know. So that, it just honestly, the first like 2 years after that happened, I don't think I fully like accepted it. And I also think I was suppressing a lot of my emotions because I feel really big. I'm very intense. Like anybody who knows me knows that like, yeah, I feel everything. And because of that, I was afraid to really let myself feel because I did not want to get sent back to this treatment facility. Like, God forbid, I don't grieve the right way and the rest of my family doesn't perceive it the right way. And they just kind of like, don't want to deal with it and send me back. But, you know, I ended up moving here 3 months after my mom passed away. And I lived with my dad. And I think it really took me, I don't think I really fully accepted it until I was like 19. I just kind of had this realization of like, the hardest part of losing my mom was the fact that she is not here. But without like saying too much, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but like her passing away set other things in motion. For example, like my mother was, I would describe her as like way too pure for this earth. So like, she did not have the life that she really deserved, essentially. My brother and sister, you know, when I left, it kind of allowed for their parent to kind of have a reality check to be a better parent to them. And then I moved here and, you know, got this opportunity. And like, it was just this realization of like, she gave you a chance to begin again. So like, stop fucking wasting it, you know? And that was just like everything kind of changed. Like after that, I really did live with like a woe is me for a really, really long time and was like a victim to my circumstances. Like, you know, like I was known as a depressed girl and I just like would do things that almost put me more on that frequency.
You know
what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to push myself out of it. I would just dwell in it and like, you know, energy is so powerful. And this was before I really learned that, but it's like, I was just manifesting more negative energy and it was just a cycle, you know, and I wasn't living. I was really just like surviving for a really, really long time.
Yeah. I want to start to get to some of your successes, but I got a few more questions that I want to touch on. One thing that you said that was interesting to me is you said the right way to grieve. And I think that's like an interesting thing to say because, you know, I've lost people in my life, but how do you perceive the right way to grieve?
I don't think there really is a right way to grieve. I think more so in that sense, in a way that my family would find as acceptable because any emotions that I dealt with to the outside looking in almost seem like an overreaction. But at the end of the day, nobody knows the full story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't want to have like a experience that people would misread and think that I'm not stable and that I need to go back to this place, you know, because I didn't want to be there. I was there for almost a year, you know. So I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to grieve. And grief is so, you know, even with my mom's passing, like I was sitting there trying to handle it so well that some people were even like judging that, like, do you even care? And it's like, oh my gosh, of course I care. Like it's my mom. But like I said, it felt like my mom just went somewhere. She wasn't gone. She was just like, not in front of me, you know? So it's like, it's different for everybody. And like every person I lose, you know, it's a different process of grieving. There is no right or wrong way. It looks so different on everyone. And like, that's the thing too. You can always assume what you would do if you were in that position, but you genuinely do not know like until you're really there, you know?
No, I agree. Cause I've had like, the reason why I ask too is because last year I lost my grandmother.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, thank you. And, you know, I had a show that night and I just didn't tell anybody and I just ran through the show. And, you know, I told people the next day and they were like, yo, you just did that? Like, I was just like, dude, it was already locked in. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to disappoint everybody and like pull the plug on this. So I was just like, let me just push through. But then people were like, you know what I mean? It's like, I was grieving that whole night, you know what I mean? But it's just like, I don't know, because, you know, someone might look at that and been like, I don't know how you could have, like, went through and did that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The point I'm trying to say is, like, it's kind of like this thing that you kind of nailed on the head. You just kind of don't know what it is. And, like, also, you know, the day of my grandmother's funeral, I'm also moving. You know what I mean? So it was, like, last year was, like, crazy in that sense. It's, like, you know, so there's, like, so much going on. But I think it also depends on, like, what's going on in your life, too. Because it's, like, I couldn't not move that day because everything was like lined up. So.
Life doesn't pause for anybody. I think that was a big thing that I've learned through everything too. It's like the world is going to keep on spinning. So like, are you going to move with it or, you know?
No, it's true. Life does not pause, you know? But, you know, I want to pull it more to you in Connecticut now.
Okay.
At what point do you feel like you start to like turn your life around and like, you know, focus on the better things?
Well, when I was like, I feel like 19, 20, around COVID, I got my heart broken like pretty severely. And I get really motivated by pain. I don't know what it is, but like someone breaks my heart and I'm like, yeah, like now I just got to go harder, you know? So I just used it as like motivation. I was working 4 jobs. I was in college and working. And I eventually just had like this really bad burnout. And I just kind of came to this conclusion, like, I need to figure out a way to make money for myself. And so in my head, I was like, I'm going to sell crystals on the internet, you know? And I was working for someone at the time, and I told them, I was like, you know, you're going to be the last person I ever work for, because after this, like, I will only be working for myself. And he was like, okay, Starr, that's nice. And I
Where were you working there for that, if you don't mind?
I was working at a smoke shop. And the thing about me is like, there's nothing wrong with working for someone else, but for me, my work ethic is just like kind of insane. Like any job I've ever done, my coworkers are like, you do too much. Like you do not get paid to do all that, you know, but I just can't help it. My mom raised me like, when you do something, you do it 100%. And if you're not committed to doing it 100%, why are you doing it? You know, so I don't half-ass anything. So at the smoke shop, like I basically turned myself into a manager. Like I learned the ins and out of every single product, you know, and just one day, you know, the right person saw my work ethic and was like, you keep talking about this crystal store, because I talked about it to everybody. I wrote it in my manifestation journal every single day that I owned this crystal store and, you know, how beautiful it was and all this stuff. And one day, like, you know, I got approached by my, you know, the people who helped me bring my business to life. And they were like, you know, like, you want to do this online? I think you could do so much with the store. And then that happened. And I think, you know, at first I was really hesitant on my like capabilities of that. But through that process, it taught me a lot of like, okay, you can do this. Like it basically set me up for everything like that followed. And then I think the real driving force in like everything that's been recent, like the last year, has been because of my son 100%.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about being a mom, but I'm curious, like, how does it look like when you're getting the store? You know, so they approach you, like, what does the process look like? Is it just like, we got this place that we think we could turn into it? Like,
they basically like had nothing. Like, it was just like they were just kind of planting a seed. They were like, would you be open to it? And I was like, yeah, like I would be open to it. And then like maybe a week later, they're kind of like, okay, here's a location, here's a budget, here's what this is gonna look like, here's what you're gonna do here. And I'm like, oh, like this is happening. Like it happened so fast that like the imposter syndrome during it was like kind of crazy. And I just didn't tell anybody about it. I just like fully, you know, started switching over. I was like working at the smoke shop, but then I was also like afterwards going and setting up this store, you know, and just like little by little, I think it was like a 2 to 3 month like process of getting everything together. And then I just made a post on Instagram like, hey, we're open, you know. And
what was that feeling on like the day that you opened?
Like just unreal. I can't like, I couldn't believe it. And honestly, like the amount of support that I had from the community like really blew my mind. Like I did not expect that at all. I didn't expect to have the opportunity to like be on like the Stanford Advocate. Like there was so much support, like, you know, people that I hadn't seen in so long that, you know, came through the store. It was good. It was a really, really great feeling. I think that people were like so excited to have this like in the community, especially like it just reassured me that like, okay, this is like one step closer into your purpose. Like, you know, because I'm questioning it a little bit. I'm like, is this gonna like be good? Like, you know, with anything, it's a risk, you know? But yeah. That's
kind of just the game sometimes. That's like what I've learned. Like, I think anytime that you do anything cool that's just like different, like not what everyone else is doing.
Like very niche, yeah.
Yeah, I think people are like behind it too. Cause I think, you know, I'll say the majority of people, not everybody, but the majority of people will, you know, rise to the occasion and just be like, oh, Starr's doing something sick. And to be honest, you know, you're talking about this post. I think that might have been the first time that I ever saw you.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Because I remember that post doing well, and I didn't know.
That's my most liked post on Instagram for sure.
Yeah, but it, like, you know what I mean? Because I was like, oh, because then it gets me curious. It's like, you know, what goes into like opening a store, like things like that. So now you're in the store. What are some things that you learned from just having the store and, you know, keeping it up and running?
Well, I basically went from like working at the smoke shop to being in charge of the entire day-to-day operations of an entire business. So it was a lot of like learn as you go. Me, how I told you about, I want to do something 100%. I'm sitting here trying to cram so much information into my brain to be like this idea of perfect and like make sure everything is smooth. Like I had to really understand like, girl, you're going to learn through fucking up. Like, and that's okay, you know? But it was at first, I will say that because it was such a fast like switch and there was also a lot of attention on me that I wasn't used to. It was an anxious time. Like it was such a good, exciting time, but I also had a lot of anxiety about it too, because obviously with the support, like there are people that are kind of like questioning it, doubting it, like just putting negative energy on it for no reason. And like all of that would like come back to me. So it's just like, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be perceived, but like, you know, I have to.
1,000%. There's like two questions I have. The first one is, you know, what was some of the negative attention? Like who was like questioning you? A lot of people kind of like questioned my capability with it. I think honestly, like there was a reason that I did not tell anybody what I was doing. Oh, okay? I don't tell anybody anything.
There's a reason.
I
really don't like unsolicited advice, but people will give you that. And
unsolicited advice is terrible.
Once I open the store,
you know what you should do.
No, exactly. And that's fine if I'm asking for it or if you're somebody that is in the same position as me, but it's people who are not, that don't have the same goals, that haven't done what I'm doing, that are trying to like put their opinion on it. And it's like, it's just this negative energy surrounding it. Like, oh, are you sure like selling rocks is going to be like, you know, it's just like people doing stuff like that.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah. And
like,
it's just like
dude.
little jabs like that. Or like, you know, there were some people who would like question like how I did it or like, you know, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of people just questioning me. You know, and it's like the universe got my back and she set me up with the right people and just put everything, you know, in front of me to make this happen. And like, it can happen for everybody. And that's why, like, I think I struggled a lot with like, because I'm somebody who like genuinely wants to help people, like wants to put people on, wants to, you know, so when people, this unnecessary like hatred, it's just like, I can teach you, I can show you, like, you know, so we all are capable of everything and anything, you know?
Oh, I agree. You know what I mean? I'm right there with you. And it's like, you know, as you're saying this, I'm kind of remembering like parts in my life where, you know, at one point, you know, even with, I don't like to say the success I had, but with success I've had, you know, like before that, it's like everybody was questioning what I was doing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure.
Like I mean, people probably still see me in the red, white, and blue. Like, what the hell is he doing?
That's part of the process as a creative. I feel people are gonna question you,
but you just got to do what's right for you. And they also like, that's the thing. No one knows what's right for you except for you. And sometimes you have to learn. Which brings me to my other question I want to ask you: what were some of the mistakes that you made?
I wouldn't say like maybe necessarily like mistakes, but I think like learning how to carry myself, because a lot of the times it was like you come into the store, this new store, and you're asking like, oh, whose store is this? And I'm like, me. And I'm like this 23-year-old girl with pink hair. And they're like, oh, you, like, you know, so it's like, it almost made me like carry myself questionably, or like, I wouldn't know how to handle certain things. Like I know how to deal with people so much, but not deal with people, but like communicate with people better, being more organized and stuff, knowing like, you know, I had to learn just so much about what goes in to having a business. I had to be my own social media person. I had to start playing so many roles. You know, with the store, that's where I hosted my first ever event, was in that basement of that store. I think that it just kind of...
Was I there at that event? Or one of them? Was Sarah there? That's the real question. If Sarah was there...
I don't think I had connected with Sarah yet. I might have.
I remember being in the basement and carrying some heavy candle boxes to the basement.
Yeah, she might have been there. Sarah was at a lot of events there. Yeah, the pop-ups that we got to do at the store were amazing. Like it allowed me to develop skills that I was able to carry over into what I'm doing now. And it's like, without that like 3-year time period of me, like it's almost like I just kind of got thrown into the fire, and it's like I just had to figure it out as I went, like how we were talking about being adaptable. The world doesn't stop. You know, I was just faced with a lot of little things where I was like, oh my gosh, this is stressful. They're upset. Like, how do I handle this? Or like, this is bad. Like, I don't know, just like little things, like getting my first like bad review on Google or something like that. Like just little stuff like that, not knowing how to navigate it in the best way, you know, when I became a boss to people and I'm hiring people, like how to really be a boss and not like, you know, a friend, like having the, you know, just learning to manage people and overall a business and the social media, just there's a lot.
There's really an art to being like a good boss too, because I've worked with artists in the past that have been so terrible, you know what I mean? But you know, when I deal with those terrible situations, I basically look at what not to do. You know what I mean? Like, why did I hate working there?
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean?
That's always been in the front of my mind.
You know what I mean? So like maybe there are things from the smoke shop that you didn't like what they did. And you're like, okay, I didn't like that they did that. Not gonna bring that here.
Yeah.
Another thing that we share in common, is that you lived in the North Dakota of Connecticut, Shelton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah. I mean, I'll speak for myself. Terrible. I also will say briefly, although it's 4 years and I don't know what we're considering brief, but, you know, what's it like? Because, you know, there's kind of a overarching theme in this episode where it's like being in the wrong area, right? You know, like North Dakota was the wrong area.
Yes.
Shelton for me was the wrong area. For you too?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. I definitely wasn't supposed to be there long term, yeah.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to get, like, you know, if you're in the wrong area, have the wrong people around you, it can affect everything.
Yes.
You know, and I know even for myself, like, you know, living in Shelton, my mental health was just not where it needed, because I'm somebody who just is trying to make things happen 24/7. And it's like, if I'm in an environment where I'm in the middle of the woods near fucking an apple tree farm, you know what I mean? I'm like, yo, what the hell? It was almost like a bad reality, but you know, was there something that you could speak on, maybe just being in like a location that just maybe not like the most productive location? You know what I mean?
Location or like environment in general?
We'll go location and maybe environment. We'll touch on both. Like, was there like a struggle, like being in Shelton, I guess, like with the commute and stuff like that? Like,
yeah, I think that was definitely a struggle. I don't know why I made that jump, you know, being there. But yeah, no, it was the wrong environment. It didn't allow me to thrive. I was spending more time like commuting than anything, you know, and I just do so much. It was like I wasn't even just commuting twice a day. I was commuting like 4 times a day, which was insane, you know, and it just overall had such an effect like on my work ethic, you know, and obviously being more in like the southern end of Fairfield County, there's a lot more going on here that just everything I need is right here. All the people that I work with are right here. Everybody and everything I need is right here. So why would I, you know, be up there?
Yeah, the reason I thought it was important to bring up, because there might be somebody listening who like is commuting and they might not even realize that it's costing them more time and money to like commute and like instead of paying whatever the extra rent is in the area that you really truly want to be in.
Yeah.
You know, so because sometimes you just gotta. We were talking about it earlier, like since I've moved back to Stanford, like the opportunities are hitting me left and right, and I'm like not even thinking about it. I'm just kind of in go mode.
No, definitely. I think I can like relate to the environmental thing almost more with like people and situations more than I can with a locality.
Oh,
but
bad.
It's the
Let's
same
talk
thing
on
applies.
bad people, dude, because having bad, I always told my sister used to get mad at me, but I was like, you are the people you hang around.
Yeah.
And I always said that. She's like, no, I'm not. But now she's older. She's like, all right. Yeah, I definitely was.
It definitely takes a minute for that to resonate. I think like all of our parents and like teachers and stuff tell us stuff like that, you know, but yeah, as you get older, I think it becomes more of an important thing, like who you're associated with. You know?
For a ton of different reasons.
And then obviously the environmental factor of it, yeah.
Yeah, what were some people that you had around you at any point in your life, or maybe even more recently, I think since you got back to Connecticut, that like you realized that maybe these aren't my people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the last like year and a half, 2 years of my life, I have completely stripped and rebranded everything that I thought I knew, all the people that I thought I knew. You know, relationships I was in, friends that I had, I didn't really realize how much that it was like weighing me down, but it's like once my eye was open to it, it could not be shut. I really just asked the universe to show me very clearly what is for me and what isn't. And it's like people just started like dropping like flies, and I just noticed that I didn't really like miss them. I missed them to a certain capacity, but my life was not altered in the slightest by them no longer being a part of it. And the space that now became open from their departure, way better things that could have never came to me without that space being open. You know, the opportunities just fall into place. Like how you come to Stanford and it's just like the opportunities are just right there. It's like, you know, as soon as I got rid of like this person who was just draining my energy, holding me back, like trying to, you know, pull me down to their level of misery, you know, once I was like, you know, I don't deserve this. This is enough. The universe was like, yeah, thank you. Here you go. Like, you know, and it just...
Yeah, as you're saying this, trust me, I have people in my life where I can relate to that. Do you find that it was like they had a change up after you were like, was it when you got the store, when you started doing Starlight Social, which I want to talk about in a second? Like what was the thing that like maybe created that gap between you and said person?
I think that, well, I had my son in November of 2023, and then I did my first event with Starlight Social in May of 2024. So that's like 2 very intense like things kind of close together. So I don't know which one it more so was, but like obviously when I had my son, like I was not the same person. Like one, just in like my time, like, yeah, guys, I can't do this spontaneous thing anymore. I apologize. Like, you know, so like some of my friends had a hard time understanding that like I was a mother now. And like also just like my son upped my worth times 1,000. It's just like I'm somebody's mom. Like I need to make sure that I'm good so that he's good. And it's just like, it just made me more aware of like, that is just unacceptable behavior. Like you're done, you know? So I don't know which one really was like a factor, you know? But yeah, around the time of like both, I feel like that's when like May, when I started Starlight Social, I feel like that's when I kind of was seeing like, okay, who's around me for like the right reasons, you know? Like it was also a thing that I struggled with like, people almost only loving me out loud, but not behind closed doors. Ooh. If that makes sense, it's like
that makes all the sense.
And I didn't like that. It felt horrible.
It is terrible, dude. And it's like I just don't. Sometimes I just don't understand people too, and especially like for me personally, you know, I try to help where I can. I try to do, but obviously I'm not a perfect person, right? But and I think it all comes back to communication. Do you find that, you know, if you were able to communicate in that situation better, that maybe that situation could have ended differently? Or do you think it always was going to be what it was going to be just because of what it was?
Well, I used to think communication was really important, but you have to understand that people can only perceive you from the level that their consciousness and their heart space also allows. I think that as I step further into like just my overall journey, that's very obvious. Like, you know, to me, there are some people that just come from a place of defense. Like I had this woman at one of the retreats I went to that told me everything is either an act of love or a cry for love. And it's, you know, you perceive the world how you perceive yourself almost, you know, like what other people think of me is not about me. It's about them, you know? So I think just like kind of realizing that, you know, and the communication sometimes I think for me personally, I don't know if other people relate to this, but sometimes people already have a fixed perspective of me. And if I sense that, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that I'm not that person anymore. Like people wouldn't let me evolve. Like I think that I go through like these rebrands and I've lived like 19 lives, like, you know, and that's not common for everybody. So I think that almost makes people question like where they are. And like, I don't know. The communication is one thing, but at the end of the day, like people can only really understand what they're capable of. Yeah.
I think maybe we're a little different in this because I think I go to like, you could ask any of my friends, I go to extreme lengths to like try to like fix situations. And sometimes it makes me look like an idiot because it's like not a fixable situation, but like.
That's that Libra.
That's that Libra, yeah. Well, the thing is like, I just don't like the idea of like any pain being out there. You know what I mean? And bad, you know, so.
I was like that, but then I really had to realize nobody is considering me that much. You know, it just was.
It definitely was a one-way street for me too. Yeah. So I'd put out a lot of energy and get none of it back. But I'm also somebody who very much values my reputation, right?
Yeah,
so, you know,
sure.
I'll go into it without going into it because maybe we could turn it like, I don't know, be curious your thoughts on it.
Okay.
But, you know, I had I guess an ex-friend at this point, and he went on a slander campaign. Yeah, and I was like, damn, dude. And I hear through the grapevine that it's like, this person is talking bad about me. And I'm like, dang, he's talking bad about me to people I don't know. So I'm like, dang. So what do? Is one, I call him out. I'm just like, yo, why are you doing this? You know what I mean? Like, can we just talk? No answer on his end. So I go to the people that he's going to say, I make a conscious effort to meet all the people he's on the slander campaign like a true politician and just like meet them and have a conversation with them just because like I'm not trying to prove anything to them, but I just wanted to have a conversation with them so that they can make their own opinion based on the situation. But
I respect that.
Am I crazy for doing that? It's a lot of effort.
No, like I used to be like you, but now I'm like, okay, like this has been a recent thought. I'm like, I have always felt like the way that I would validate myself is speaking my truth. If you're speaking on me and it's not accurate, I have to like how you, like, I want to tell you my truth. But now I've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, if you're an individual that is going to believe a single narrative and run with it.
I agree. And you know what? I could tell it was crazy though that you bring that up, because once I met the people that, you know, my ex-friend was talking smack to, I could tell that they didn't believe him. You know what I mean?
They're like, oh, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, I could tell that they didn't believe him, which was like good for me. But it wasn't like I was doing it because I was like, I care what they think about me. But so there's two sides. Like there's the personal side, like me as a person, like me as a person, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Me as a business, I care because, you know, I'm trying to do a lot in the community.
100%.
I'm trying to be, you know, I'm this outspoken public figure. I don't need my foundation getting crumbled because of one idiot. You know what
100%,
I mean?
100%. I think that it's definitely different if it pertains to business or like personal. Like if you're coming at who I am, like my personal life or like something like that, like I don't really feel the need to like clear any of that up. But if there's ever an issue like within business, I will go above and beyond to make sure that there's like a solution to that, you know?
Yeah. So let's bring it to Starlight Social, right? I gotta ask, how'd you come up with the name?
I had help from a really amazing friend. She helped me figure it out. We were sitting there texting back and forth, and she sent me it, and I was like, that's literally fucking perfect. She's a genius.
Which friend was this?
Sarah Sprogus.
Let's go. Yes, if I didn't bring that up on the pod, Sarah, I would be sleeping on the couch for at least that night.
No, shout out to Sarah. Shout out Briarwood Candles.
Yeah. But let's just talk about Starlight Social. Let's talk about the first event. Why did you want to do this? Like what was like, did you just get up and you're just like, oh, I guess maybe it comes from Crystal's Unlimited doing that first one, but talk to me.
It comes from my whole life. I think that's what, like when people ask me this question, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a big question, because like, I was doing the events at the Crystal store. And I also just really always was very, very gravitated towards music. You know, as a kid, when I talk about wanting that escape, music was one of the first things that I learned like to use as a coping skill. You know, like when I was in treatment, you know, I just had stacks on stacks of CDs and that's all I would do, you know, just sit in my room and listen to music. And I had a lot of like friends or like people around me that were either like producers, engineers, artists. Like I just, for some reason, was always around these people. I started doing like modeling and creative directing for like this small artist group in Connecticut, and I was around them a lot. We became good friends, and they just kept telling me about what they were going through to perform. And I was like, so you're paying to perform and you're doing all this, and like, it doesn't sound like, what are you getting out of it? I'm like, I'm so confused, you know? And I'm doing these little pop-up events, and they are little pop-up events. Like they are 4 to 5 vendors in my store's basement, you know? And I was just kind of like, I want to do this in a way where it's more of an experience. Like people will come into the store, they'll check out every table, and then it's like, okay, bye. But it's like, no, hang out with us. But like, there wasn't the space, there wasn't like the energy for it. So I was like, how do I make this, you know, an overall experience? And actually, where I hosted my first Starlight Social event was the space that I had my baby shower in. So I was like, that space is perfect. It's just this big open thing. I'm like, you know, I'm going to set up a stage. I know 10 artists, like, you know, and I'm just going to get mad vendors. And I was sitting, you know, talking to somebody, and I was like, this is my idea. Like, should I just do it? Like, you think I could do it? And they were like, yeah. I immediately picked up the phone and put a deposit down on the event space. And I just started like hitting people up, and yeah, it was a struggle. Like, you know, some people were like, you're trying to do what? Like, okay, you know.
I feel like anytime you're trying to do something like outside the box, it's just it kind of goes back to what you're saying. I just stopped telling people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But no, the people that did believe in it from the start, oh my gosh, like I'm going to love them for the rest of my life. Like that first group of artists, the first group of vendors, the first DJ, like it's like, I got, even with the Crystal store, but everything that like I've gotten, like it takes all those little people that like believe in it too, like for sure.
It goes back to your circle, like having a good circle of people that like genuinely believe in you. Like, yeah. Cause you know, you can motivate yourself, which I find I end up doing most of the time. But then there's also like, it's the little bit of reassurance you get, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is going to be sick. You know what I mean? It's like, hell yeah.
No, cause I was scared. I didn't know if people were going to show up.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest fear of events, right? Like, and then it's like if an event does bad, you know, I got this Connect 4 thing coming up. I think it's going to do well, but you know, it's like there is that little thought in the back of my head where I'm like, damn, what if nobody shows up to this silly Connect 4? Yeah, because running events is just a scary thing, and there's anything in entertainment is low key scary, and I don't think people realize that because everything is a risk. You know, literally everything. I feel like because I've been in music for so long, but everything I've done is just like, I don't know if it's gonna work, and things haven't worked, you know. But it's like you kind of just laugh it off when they don't, you know what I mean? Because like, I've definitely done shows like where 5 people showed up. I've done shows where, you know, a couple hundred people show up. So it's like they kind of even them out, you know. But the point I'm just trying to get to is the risk of this thing, you know. And so you've done a couple of these events. What's been your biggest moment of success so far?
I think for me, like personally, like, I mean, like we were featured on the news for like our open mics, which I thought was like really cool, you know. That made me really happy. For me, like a really great moment in this was like when I collaborated with First Class and we did the first showcase Spectra. Like that was a big moment for me, you know, because the quality that they were able to, you know, bring to the table, you know, and us just like putting all of our expertise together. It was just so beautiful and like such a great show.
I was an absolute menace at that event, dude. I was just like, I literally was there to help no one and just cause trouble. You know, I was on demon time. No, I just remember one of my favorite moments. I'll cherish that for 2 reasons. One, Jet was doing something absolutely ridiculous earlier in the day that I'll tell you about off camera.
Oh, goodness.
And so like the entire night I was just like, yo, I know what you did earlier, dog. And which killed me throughout the entire night. And then also, you know, Jet's band went up first and they went so over the time.
Oh yeah, they definitely extended their set.
And I saw you. And that's the thing, it sucks. Like I don't drink or smoke, but I thrive in chaos. Like I love watching things like, because the thing is that I like chaos that's not gonna hurt anybody.
Yeah,
you know
right.
I mean?
It's a fun chaos, an organized chaos.
Yeah, well, like not that I got like excited, but like I saw you, Murda, Mike, like I forget who else. I think it was Hollywood.
Probably,
yeah. And he's like, yo, they're like 10 minutes over. And then like,
I'm like, what Hollywood
Hollywood literally goes to Jet and he's like, yo, you got to get off or no, he was like, you got to get off now. And Jet's like, I got you. He's like, y'all want 2 more songs? Like, dude,
I do remember that.
Dude, I was rolling. I was in tears.
They did an amazing job though, so it was worth it.
They're so good. They're my favorite band.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite performances. But it just kind of shows like some of the chaos that's in the event.
Things just happen that are unexpected, and it's like, am I gonna like freak out or I'm gonna be like, haha, like okay.
And thankfully, like First Class is a spot where it's like, you know, they don't really have like a time limit. You know what I mean? Because some venues have like curfews and stuff. Like for I was out working at a comedy show the other night. Like my new homie Lil Mo had a show and the openers were going over a little bit and you could tell the comedy club was like stressed.
Oh,
you know
wow.
what I mean? Because they have other shows. Like they got things like if it pushes it back, they got to like keep their staff hired for longer. There's like a lot like, you know, sometimes when people go over it's a bigger domino effect than to just like moving the set. You know what I mean? But so what's something that you've learned from these events? Like something that's been like a struggle that you've had to overcome?
Oh, I mean, the biggest thing that I learned when I did my 3rd like solo showcase Luminary, that's the one that like I host, you know, just with Starlight Social. The 3rd showcase, everything went wrong, and I thought I had prepared everything to a T.
Let's talk about this. Bring me through the whole story of this day because we're here for it. And
I literally thought I was gonna have a heart attack this day. I have never in my life experienced this level of stress. Like it was next level. So this is my Luminary event. This is that open concept event. I have been at this same space 3 times now. You know, this is the 3rd event. I come the night before and set up everything with the DJ. I'm here all night, right? So I walk in 15 minutes before my vendor setup time to get on the elevator and I'm clicking it and the elevator's not coming and I look up and it's elevator not in use. We got to go to the 4th floor though. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I have 30 vendors like pulling into the parking lot right now with an insane amount of stuff. Like I'm not making anybody come up these stairs, whatever, you know. I'm calling the tenant who, you know, has the space. He's calling the owner. The owner's offering me the parking lot. I'm like, I'm not going in the parking lot, my guy.
What month is this, just for the record?
What?
Like, what month was this?
This is in October.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it's not terrible outside.
It's not
but
terrible
still,
out, but you
still.
got to think about, we're doing a whole showcase. We have tattoos. We have people need power sources.
Yeah, the tattoo in the parking lot is crazy.
And the amount of people that we had, it just wasn't going to work. So for like 30 minutes, they're going back and forth trying to figure this out. And I'm sitting here like, all these vendors are like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, everybody pause. I'm the only person in communication with like 50 plus people that are part of this operation. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I'm trying not to freak out. I'm thinking that I'm going to have to cancel this event, which is like breaking my heart into pieces. And then eventually he's just like, okay, there's a space downstairs. Let's move everything. The people that were already present, like the vendors, the artists, helped me so much. I never seen like people come together like that. Like we were carrying like huge speakers down 4 flights of stairs, like an insane amount of stuff, got everything organized. We essentially ended up using like someone else's space, it was a bigger space. It was one with a stage. We started off not even having like a stage, for the artist. So we were like excited, but they were kind of not happy that we were there because it was a more expensive space, but it wasn't being used.
I'm glad that they even accommodated you.
No, I was so blessed that they, accommodated me, because I would have been really heartbroken if we had to cancel it. So, we're getting vendors in, and I just remember like, as soon as it like stopped, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to go sit down somewhere before I but
as you're saying 4 flights of stairs, like I'm just imagining, because when Sarah, sometimes she'll be like, oh Mike, just come carry my candle boxes. Me going up 4 flights of stairs with a box of candles.
Exactly. Like I wasn't making anybody do that. Like I just couldn't, but it didn't even end there, the guy that, had the other space was following my interns around the entire night, telling them to get out. Mind you, we were supposed to be there until 11. It's like 7:30. So it was stressful the entire time. And it kind of felt like anything that I could have been prepared for kind of just like blew up in my face. But it was like, that was a moment where it was like, you have to trust the people around you. You have to trust like the universe. You have to trust that things will fall into place. Like you cannot freak out when, things go to plan. There's no way, there's going to be things in life that you aren't prepared for. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So this has taught me to kind of go with the flow. And I also feel like working with like Mike and Murda, they kind of teach me to be like more relaxed with stuff too. So I think that's something that I'm learning over time, just to be adaptable, stay calm.
Yeah, it's just something that I feel like I've learned over time. Cause like, from years of touring, like things go wrong all the time. Like I've seen the wheels blow out. I've seen like, we've had to like switch vans halfway because one died and that we've had no AC.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? There just becomes a point where it's like out of your control and you just got to flow through. But, I think moments like that actually make you better because
100%.
Because when things go wrong in the future, you're like, oh, this is nothing compared to that one time.
Well, it showed me like, because in my head, like I left that event and I was like, you failed. I'm like, you did so bad. Yeah, like I struggled with, I'm very hard on myself. I'm my, own worst critic. But, in my head, I'm like, that was a mess. Like, you need to do better, but then my friends are like, Starr, like nobody else saw it that way. Like, it's just because you did all that, but like nobody else saw it, So it's like things can still go wrong and things can still be like quote unquote like successful, like it's again that like figuring it out as you go.
Oh yeah, and people I don't think for the most part are as harsh like sometimes as you think they might be because I'm somebody who like obsesses over details. Will put in there are certain things that and it kind of goes back to like being grateful because sometimes I'll look at things as like not failures, but like, dang, that didn't hit or like that wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But then I'll have friends remind me, be like, dude, the fact that you're even in this position and able to do this, like you're good. You know what I mean? And like, not everything is going to be a hit. Not every single thing is going to be your best thing. That's why the best ones are special. And, you learn from the worst ones.
I've learned from everything though, even the ones that aren't like a hit. I feel like and honestly, at the end of the day, this was all built with the idea of community. So it's like, I know that every single event like is making somewhat of an impact on like people's lives, otherwise people wouldn't keep coming, but no, it's definitely, even when it seems like unsuccessful, when I remember the whole reason why this started, like it's always successful,
Starr, what's next for you?
I really would like to nurture my interest in music a lot more. I've been working, closer with my good friend who you also know, Shy Guy, helping him with like his social media and things like that. I really just like all things creative, all things, music. So I just want to nurture that more and just kind of lean into wherever the universe takes me. I'm like kind of a full-time creative now. As you know, we closed the store, transitioned online. So this allows me to be really fluid with events and just take on, it's crazy, even with this, transition, the opportunities that have already come to me that are, in alignment with that like creative process, So I don't really know what's next, but I'm open to everything that comes my way.
Yeah. What's some of the best advice that you've ever got?
The best advice I ever got in my entire life, I thought this was stupid advice at first. The best advice I ever got was do what scares you the most.
No, I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
If something's scaring you, I feel like we're almost taught to be fearful of fear, but fear is almost like just the unknown. It's not, you know what I mean? And
1,000%.
Yeah. And I don't know, like once I did that once, like anything where I'm like, I want to do it, but I'm scared. It's like, and that's exactly why you should do it. It's like what came from that is like how it builds your character, like the opportunities that it gives you. Like you do have to run face first into fear if you are somebody who wants more. If you're okay living exactly how you are, then that's fine. You don't got to confront fear ever, but
I think the greatest, well, it's kind of like, what's the one that I say? It's like, the best things come out of the comfort zone, or like best things are out of the comfort zone.
Yeah,
I don't know what the hell. But no, that's where all my opportunities and everything. And it kind of goes back to my chaos. Like I thrive in like chaos and the unknown, where it's like, because sometimes it's just, if you can manage to have fun while you're like afraid to do something and just embrace it for what it is and just know that you're not going to know what everything's going to be. It's not going to be perfect. It might be fucking ugly. This might actually be terrible, but
literally.
If you're able to embrace it and just give it a chance, it also could be the greatest thing that you ever do.
No, seriously, I feel like I've fallen in love with this. Like I didn't like uncertainty. I like to know everything and be prepared for everything. But I think now I just like have fallen so in love with like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. And not knowing what to expect. Like I think we need to be open to miracles and just open to the idea of like, when you put something out there, like an idea out there, like I want this, the universe listens, but she might not give it to you in exactly the way that you anticipate it to be. So you need to be open to any way that can come to you in order to really receive it. And sometimes that might scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, but again, I think that's where the best things happen.
Exactly, I agree.
What's some advice that you'd have for somebody that's getting into a creative path, the entrepreneurial path right now?
Your friends and family are not your target audience. Seek less outer validation for sure. Like how we were talking about, a lot of people have opinions. Everybody in this world has an opinion, but it doesn't mean we should listen to all of them. Just really ask yourself, like, is this authentic? Does this make me feel good? You really got to understand that there are going to be some times where you are going to be the only person motivating yourself. So I think that the first step before you like embark on this journey, like really be intentional about like your security within yourself and your confidence within yourself, because that's what it is. It's an extension of you. So you got to be good.
Yeah, and you kind of hit one of the words on the head that I always look for, confidence, where it's like, even before this, I was telling you, like, with my red, white, and blue suit, I feel ridiculous. I feel ridiculous right now. But I at least wear it with confidence and just, like, know that, people, like, if they get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. Whatever.
Exactly,
But, yeah, you just got to do it with confidence. Starr, if you had one message to the world, something that you want people to remember you for, what would it be? Yeah, my bad.
I just want to help raise the consciousness of humanity. If I could like inspire someone like towards their healing journey, or just honestly, like your current situation is not your final destination. Like we all have a choice. Like you can create your own heaven on earth. You can make, everybody is capable. Everybody. It starts with your mindset.
No, I agree with that 1,000%. I think that's true to my story too.
I just want to wake everybody up to like their potential,
No, that's great.
People see that.
If people want to connect with you or find you, how can they find you?
Starlight Social on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Crystals Unlimited on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story.
Me too.
I think a lot of people will be inspired. I think there's a lot of people that probably learn a little bit more about you that they might not have known, and maybe people that can relate and, find their own.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course.